I married the man everyone called ideal. Only our wedding bed disagreed. From the street, our home looked like contentment itself. Golden windows glowing through Seattle drizzle, the kind of light that made passers-by imagine laughter inside. But silence filled every room. A soft, obedient creature that learned my habits better than my husband ever tried to. The wedding photo above the fireplace leaned slightly to one side, one screw loose, like a truth pretending to balance. Dinner was quiet, except for the cutlery's occasional clink. Nathan's face, lit by the overhead lamp, revealed nothing but precision. He chewed as if timing each bite against a metronome. When the tablet on the table lit up, Martha's voice came through too bright. "Sweetheart," she said, meaning me only by etiquette, "when will I hear about grandchildren? A house this lovely deserves tiny feet." Nathan swallowed. "We're tired, Mom." "Tired passes," she sang. "Babies don't wait for perfect timing." I smiled the way women smile when cornered by politeness, then ended the call before she turned the subject into scripture. The room fell still. Even the rain seemed to hold its breath. We cleaned up side by side. Steam misted the kitchen window. Water gathered silver on his forearms. He moved near me without touching, museum careful. "Mom just worries," he said. "Worry is what control calls itself," I answered. He didn't reply. Upstairs, the bedroom glowed with the same artificial warmth. Nathan kissed my temple, gracious, procedural, and undressed with the precision of a surgeon preparing for an operation. His hands on me were gentle, practiced, careful not to wake anything dangerous. He used only his hands, never his body, and when I shivered, he mistook it for gratitude. When he turned away, I watched the muscles of his back settle into rest like shutters closing. "Stay," he murmured into the pillow. I lay awake beside him, listening to the rain counting seconds against the glass. My skin hummed with questions his silence refused to answer. By morning, the lake was slate and the air tasted of tin. Nathan dressed in his navy suit, knotting his tie with studied grace. I brewed coffee and tried to believe the smell meant normalcy. He left with a kiss that barely touched, saying only, "Long day ahead." The door closed with the precision of punctuation. Alone, I noticed the tilted frame again. I took it down, examined the short screw that refused to hold, and put it back deliberately askew. Then I opened my laptop. An unread email waited, subject line, "Prenup Addendum Review." I scrolled until the letters blurred. The phrases "proposed revisions" and "council meeting" pulsed like distant sirens. The screen reflected my face, pale, doubting, already halfway to disbelief. The next sound was the laptop pinging softly, an alert polite enough to ruin a life. Meeting confirmed with Carter Law. The dishwater is warm. My hands are cold. Steam ghosts from the sink, curling against the dim kitchen light. Outside, fog drifts across the lake, wrapping the deck in gauze. I scrub a plate until it squeaks, until my reflection disappears beneath the foam. Each wet fingerprint I leave behind looks like evidence waiting to be collected. Nathan leans on the doorway, sleeves rolled, voice calm enough to bruise. "Emily, don't share private things," he says. "Not with friends, not with your coworkers." "People misunderstand. I haven't," I answer. "I know. Just don't. Things are delicate." "Delicate," I repeat, Like contracts? He sighs, the sound of a file closing. The wall clock ticks louder than either of us. My phone buzzes on the counter. Claire Morgan, you okay? Heard Nate's cleaning up the family files. Cleaning up. The Hale family's polite synonym for erasing. I text back. What files? Her reply arrives almost playful. Just admin stuff. Addenda, I think. Less for you to worry about. A smiley face punctuates the lie. Nathan's gaze follows the glow of the screen. Claire? Yes. She says you're reorganizing the family cloud. Security protocol, he says, adjusting invisible cufflinks. His control is muscle deep. A new email slides into my inbox. Review addendum signatures. Meeting request. Carter Law again. I feel the air thin. He notices but pretends not to. I'm making tea, I say. Good, he murmurs, stepping away, already somewhere else in his head. The kettle hums. Steam veils the countertop. Droplets form constellations on the steel. My reflection trembles in them, multiplied, erased. I pour, but the tea tastes metallic. When he goes upstairs, the house exhales, a small relief followed by a larger fear. I open the laptop, navigate to the Hale family cloud. The page is white, trusting. Access request requires admin approval. I try again with an older link. You do not have permission. I type once more, slower, deliberate, using the account Nathan made for me on our wedding day. My name misspelled in the username. A minor wound that never healed. Account not authorized for protected records. The mug cools beside me. My pulse makes tiny ripples on the surface. The silence grows teeth. The ticking clock becomes a hammer driving time into the walls. A new message from Claire arrives. Don't worry, Nate handles all that. Lucky you. Lucky. I delete it without opening the thread. I rise, drawn by a restlessness too quiet to name. The corridor smells of cedar and something metallic, the scent of closed rooms. In Nathan's office, the air feels heavier, stale with control. Books line the walls like obedient soldiers. I touch the wooden paneling. The polish hides dust in the seams. My palm slides across a faint groove, catches on a difference in grain. I press. Nothing. Then again, firmer. Just enough to make the wood give a sigh. Somewhere inside the wall, a mechanism answers, a soft click. Sharp, deliberate, secret. It echoes once and dies, leaving the room holding its breath. At 36, I can tell the difference between a loving hand and a fearful one. Rain needles the windows like 1,000 small tests, and the dimmer has been turned so low the room feels underwater, everything slowed by amber. I slide beneath the covers and face Nathan, letting the cotton catch against my knees, close enough that my breath brushes his collarbone. I take his wrist gently, guide his palm to my sternum and breathe, slow and full, so he can feel the rise and fall. For a heartbeat, he lets it happen. Then his fingers stiffen, as if the air between us has become a rule. Not tonight, he says. I'm tired. The words land softly, then bruise. I keep my voice even. You're always tired when it requires you, not just your hands. He draws back an inch, the mattress receiving the retreat. I see us both in the mirrored armoire. His outline and mine, overlaid, almost touching, but not quite. And then the light shifts and his reflection doubles, two shapes occupying the same man. It looks like a magic trick performed for no audience. Maybe that is what our marriage has become. Rehearsed gestures to prove nothing is wrong. I sit up, knees tucked under the duvet. Answer me without the script, Nathan. Do you love me or do you love the role of a husband? He rubs his brow like erasing chalk. Emily, it's a yes or no question. It isn't, he snaps, and the word phrase. And it's late, and this isn't convenient, I finish. Love isn't a board meeting. It doesn't need a quorum. His jaw moves once, twice. The rain pushes harder, a percussion section trying to be helpful. He swings his legs over the side of the bed, rubs his palm down his thigh as if smoothing a wrinkle I can't see. I have an early call. Of course, I say. Another committee that knows more about us than I do. He turns at that, a flare of something raw in his eyes. Anger or fear. Cousins who visit without warning. That's not fair. And what we're doing is? The question leaves my mouth cool and clean, like a blade rinsed after use. You keep offering me only the part of you that can't touch fire. He stands. The dim light sketches the architecture of him. Shoulders designed to carry, spine designed to divide. He crosses the room, stops by the door, doesn't open it. For a second, I think he might come back, might say the thing that would pour water on all this heat. Instead, he exhales through his nose, small and controlled. I'm going to the office. Down the hall, I say, though it feels miles away. When the door clicks, the sound is tidy and final, the kind of period that ends a paragraph you weren't done reading. I lie there long enough to count my own pulse twice, then push the covers aside and stand. The carpet is warm where his feet have just been, and cool where mine go next. I take the dimmer down another notch, so the room becomes a confession booth, and stare into the armoire again. Two Nathans stare back. The man and the outline of what he thinks a man should look like. Between them, space. I cross the hall, barefoot. The house holds its breath. Somewhere a pipe knocks once, like a warning. The office door is ajar, and his shadow passes across the bookshelves in a clean diagonal. He doesn't see me. He is pacing between desk and wall, something restless caged inside his measured step. His hand drifts along the spines, and in the mirror-bright glass of a framed certificate, I watch his fingers pause at the paneling where shelf meets trim. A small, precise motion, weight shifted, pressure applied. Then the briefest sound, a subdued mechanical assent. He freezes. I step back into the dark of the hall, pulse in my wrists. He doesn't open anything. He just stands there, listening, like a man testing bad weather with his face. After a beat, he returns to the desk, picks up his phone, taps, 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 messages I cannot see, and then leaves as quietly as he came, brushing past me without looking. Because not seeing is a skill you can practice into talent. When I'm sure he's gone, I slip into the office. The air is different here, cooler, orderly as a filing system. My skin notices it before my mind does. I move toward the bookshelves, letting the pads of my fingers read the wood, the satin finish, the heat where his hand just was. The faint irregularity of grain interrupted by joinery. I press my palm to the seam where the shelf meets the wall. The panel gives nothing back. I step away, then forward again, aligning my weight with the shadowed edge. The dimmer in this room hums a thin electrical note, and the rain conducts it. I try the pressure he used, more of a lean than a push, a question asked in the language of mass. Something answers. Not much, just a thinning of the silence, a hush moving through wood like breath through a reed. I hold still, counting heartbeats so the sound I make doesn't cover the sound I need. The armoire mirror across the hall carries a sliver of my reflection. A woman in a borrowed hush. A woman who has mistaken survival for consent. I think of the phrase that has been rubbing against my ribs for weeks, flint against bone. I don't need you perfect, I whisper to the room, trying the truth on to see if it fits. I need the truth. A drop of rain finds a seam in the window and ticks onto the sill, a metronome in human time. I slide my fingers along the shelf edge again, slower. There, a fault line narrow as a paper cut. I lean closer until my breath fogs the varnish and leaves a crescent that fades, then returns with the next exhale. Up close, I can see it. A hairline that doesn't match the joinery anywhere else. A seam too exact to be accident, running the height of the case like a zipper hidden in couture. I angle my head, listening for the settling of the house. Behind the panel there is a thin, resonant space, the way a hollow door sounds compared to solid oak. My fingertip finds a shallow dip in the molding, no wider than a thumbnail, where the finish is slightly worn. When I press it, the shelf resists, then yields a fraction of a fraction, enough to steal breath from my mouth. It's there. I'm not wrong. A room inside the room, or a cabinet large enough to pretend to be a room. A secret granted by architecture and guarded by habit. The hallway breathes. I straighten quickly, scan for disturbance. The chair remains angled just so. The pen on the blotter points toward the window. The rug is unruffled, except where my toes have made small, polite commas. I step backward, slow, letting the sight of the seam fix itself in my mind like a map you can redraw later with your eyes closed. The rain crescendos and then softens, as if the storm has decided it has made its point. I reach for the dimmer to raise the light and check the molding again. One more careful look before I leave, when the house shudders. Not an earthquake, not quite. More like a breath held too long suddenly let go. The bulb over the desk hiccups. The ceiling fixture in the hall flutters like a heartbeat skipping a step. The computer monitor on the desk blinks to black and back to gray. The air tastes of ozone, thin and metallic, as if a match has been struck somewhere behind the walls. The power flickers. When the lights return, the bookcase has slid back into place. Every secret leaves dust. Dawn is a pale rumor seeping between the blinds when I slip into Nathan's office. The city beyond the windows is still hushed. A wet postcard. Mist pressed flat over Lake Union. Gulls skimming the water like signatures. The room smells faintly of lemon oil and the colder scent of metal. I stand still long enough for the quiet to accept me, then cross to the shelves with the care of someone returning to a crime scene she hasn't decided to confess. Dust tells the truth before people do. Along the bottom rail of the bookcase, a thin crescent has been wiped into the powder, a precise, almost elegant curve. It doesn't match the straight line of routine cleaning. It's the path a hidden thing takes when it moves just enough to breathe. I kneel and press my fingertip into the fine gray, then draw it back through the crescent. The groove is shallow but certain. the wood remembers. I let my palms skim the walnut, slow, exploratory, mapping each seam with the pads of my fingers. The paneling is cool. Where shelf meets molding, the lacquer is subtly rubbed, a shine thumb-polished by use. I push there, gently at first. Nothing. Then I lean my weight from the hip the way I saw him do, a body question instead of a hand command. The shelf resists with the delicate pride of good carpentry, and yields. A breath of negative space whispers from behind the wood, the sound a reed makes when the player is not yet ready for the note. Something clicks, not loud, not theatrical. A clean, adult sound, the kind a lock makes when it recognizes its native language. The case shifts a finger's width and stops, as if to confirm I truly want this. I do. I brace one palm on the frame and the other on the shelf's inner edge and slide. The movement is smooth enough to feel expensive. The bookcase glides away from the wall on a concealed track, revealing a dark seam that opens like a pupil dilating to light. A draft, cool as a throat, strokes my face. Inside, a narrow cavity just wider than my shoulders. One overhead strip of light hums awake when my foot crosses the threshold, its glow a clinical hush. Steel table, small safe bolted to the floor. A black notebook centered on the table with the precision of a ritual object. The air is drier in here, as if time itself is desiccated for storage. I stand in the doorway and count. Heartbeat, breath, heartbeat. Because the body has rules about how quickly it allows a new reality to enter. Then I step in, and the wall settles back behind me with the soft certainty of a door that prefers to be shut. I test the book with 2 fingers, half expecting an alarm. Nothing. The cover is worn at the edges where a thumb has lived. The elastic band yields with a tired snap. The first page feels thicker than paper, as if layered with unsentences. Ink, dark and disciplined, anchors each line in a handwriting I know from grocery lists and board notes. I don't read, not yet, not before I create a second witness. I take out my phone and call Rebecca. She answers on the second ring, voice already caffeinated. Please tell me this is about breakfast. It's about doors, I say, and how some of them pretend to be walls. Emily. The name slows in her mouth. Are you safe? I think so. I'm in Nathan's office. In a space behind the shelves, I consider the table. The small safe with its matte dial like a moon. The notebook waiting with patient threat. If this turns into something legal, are you with me? There is no pause, just the soft click of her decision. Yes, but you do nothing impulsive. Photos first, timestamps. You don't remove anything. You don't... Emily, are you listening? I'm listening. I take a wide shot of the room, then closer frames. The rail track recessed into the floor, the brushed steel table, the safe, the notebook's frayed elastic. The light overhead hums in a narrow key, an apology for its honesty. I set the phone to Do Not Disturb, then lift the cover, telling myself I will only take a sip of this, not the whole glass. A name doesn't appear. There are no dates yet. Only an opening sentence that steps toward me like a man in a doorway. If she knows why I hold back, she'll leave. The room shrinks by a degree. The words are simple enough to tattoo. The pen stroke bites slightly harder on hold back, as if the hand wanted to press the meaning into the page until it bruised. I touch the ink and then pull away, surprised by my own superstition. I turn the next line, scanning without permission from the part of me that prefers ignorance. I promised myself to be safe for her. Rules will save us. Boundaries will save me from myself. I close the notebook before the page can finish its argument. The steel table cools the underside of my wrist. My mouth is too dry for a morning this damp. I take 3 slow breaths, the kind Dr. Cole once taught us. Inhale 4, hold 4, exhale 6, and the air evens enough for thought to return. Rules. Boundaries. Safe for her. The phrases approach compassion, then shiver back to control. Love wears a lab coat here. I photograph the first page without the text in full, just enough to prove the object exists, not enough to turn it into evidence I can't yet protect. I crouch at the safe, study the dial. No sticky note with a code. He is not that careless. I glance around for a key. The cabinetry is spare. The shelves inside the cavity hold only 3 items: a small velvet box, an envelope sealed with wax, and a folded microfiber cloth. I resist them all. Rebecca's voice returns in my head like a metronome set to caution. Don't remove anything. Don't trigger anything. I reopen the notebook to the inside cover, hunting for the kind of mark men leave when they think about posterity. A name scrawled as a future alibi. Nothing. Only the neatness of someone who plans to be read but never confiscated. I rest my palm on the table, watch the condensation from my skin print and fade. Some doors open not to hide, I say aloud, testing the truth against the air, but to illuminate. The sentence steadies me. The light overhead buzzes assent. Or maybe it's just electricity doing what physics tells it to. In the office beyond the wall, the house wakes. Heat vent ticking, fridge murmuring awake. A boat's horn shouldering the fog on the lake. I let the book close, slide the elastic back into place, then step out, guiding the shelf home along its track until the seam is once more a rumor. I polish the rail with the microfiber cloth so the crescent in the dust looks like an accident of housekeeping, not an invitation. My phone vibrates in my palm with a tidy insistence I already despise. I expect Claire, or Nathan, or Martha with a new proverb. It's none of them. The calendar app blooms a white square across the lock screen, efficient as a verdict. Prenup addendum. Final review today, 3 p.m. Not every signature is a decision. Some signatures are traps. Lakeside smells like coffee oils and damp wool. Noon light sulks behind a ceiling of cloud, the kind of gray that makes reflections out of windows and secrets out of people. I choose a table by the glass where I can see Lake Union wear the last of the rain like a shawl. Rebecca arrives with a file tucked under her arm and a grin that never confuses friendliness with softness. "Show me what you've got," she says, sliding into the chair opposite. Her blazer is rain-speckled. Her hair escapes a clip with deliberate disobedience. I pass her my phone, the calendar invite glowing like a polite threat. She reads, then produces printouts from her folder, draft pages that carry the sterile scent of a laser printer and the faint metallic tang of risk. "This is the addendum language," she says, tapping a paragraph with a pen. "Proposed, not executed." Notice the phrasing. In the event the marriage is not consummated within a reasonable period following the ceremony, parties agree that the following assets shall... She pauses, looks up. Do you see it? I see a knife wearing a lace glove. Consummated, I repeat, the word too clinical to hold what it wants. And reasonable, which means as reasonable as the person wielding it. It's vague to the point of weaponry, she says. Also note the structure. It tries to route certain assets by default back to Hale family entities. That's unusual post-marriage, unless both parties reaffirmed very specific terms. You didn't sign this. It is not a question. No. Then someone intends to lean on it as leverage, she says. Even as a draft, it can create pressure, especially if they manufacture acknowledgments. The risk isn't just the clause, it's the narrative they build around it. She flips to the last page. And I don't love that this is dated so close to the wedding. The server interrupts with 2 Americanos and a bowl of sugar that looks like quartz. The napkins are folded into triangles sharp enough to cut. Rebecca waits until we're alone again. Tell me about the details they'd try to use, she says with the gentleness of a doctor asking where it hurts. I look past her shoulder, out to the water. A rower cuts a clean line that disappears behind him as soon as it's made. Nathan is careful, I say. He only used his hands. He keeps the rest of himself behind a door. The coffee cools under my breath. I felt like a house he was staging, not one he lived in. And sometimes I thought, maybe he had to marry me. For optics, for inheritance, for someone else's idea of order. Rebecca doesn't flinch, doesn't pity. She calibrates. Okay, she says. That combination, your intimacy account plus this clause, creates a story they could try to tell, that the marriage isn't complete, and therefore certain transfers should reverse. Legally, consummation is murky in modern jurisprudence. Some states don't care, others only in niche contexts. But narratives scare boards more than statutes do. A couple behind me laughs at something private. The sound lands and fizzles. I run my thumb along the paper's edge. A faint ridge catches the skin like a dull blade. The fold line is too crisp, too purposeful, as if the document has been opened and closed enough times to make the crease permanent, a hinge in a trap. What about process? I ask. Carter law is running point. Rebecca's mouth goes flat. I've dealt with Carter. He likes shortcuts with scenic views. He'll say it's all routine, just aligning documents with realities. If he's blowing past best practices, he'll leave fingerprints. Wrong version histories, missing acknowledgments, admin changes out of sequence. She pulls a legal pad toward her and draws a small map. Boxes for doc storage, arrows for approvals. We'll request the audit trail of the addendum via formal channels. Also, chain of custody for any evidence they intend to rely on. Evidence, I echo. In my chest, a bird improves its cage. Who would vouch for this? She asks. Witnesses at the drafting? Notary? Anyone present at a so-called reaffirmation? Claire, I say, the name feeling like the clink of glass set too hard on a counter. She texted me this morning about cleaning up the family cloud. She sounded satisfied. Rebecca nods once. Then we'll assume coordination between Claire and Carter. That means 2 fronts, legal and narrative. She taps her pen. You cannot confront them yet. If we spook them, they control the rhythm and the optics. We need proof that speaks when they try to shout. I blow on my coffee, and watch the surface tremble back into stillness. I've seen a space behind Nathan's shelves, I say, as carefully as one might lift a veil. I can't tell you more yet, but it exists. Documented, she says without changing tone. Time-stamped photos from your device. Don't remove items. Don't trigger changes. If there's a notebook, she stops, then softens the edge. If there's anything like that, be cautious. Private writings walk a thin line as evidence, but they can guide us to things admissible. People come and go, their coats steaming from the last rain. The cafe's door sighs every time it closes, like the building believes in manners. I stare at the claws on the page again. The words are clinical, but I can hear how they'll be used, as a story that makes me the problem, my body the boardroom. If justice is a late guest, I say, I'll save her a seat. Rebecca's smile is all approval and no romance. Good. Patience isn't passivity. It's loading the file. She underlines a line on her pad. Timeline. When did the idea of the addendum appear? Who proposed it? And will want your medical records in a sealed envelope in case they try to claim anything. We control that narrative, not them. I never thought I'd have to prove a negative, I say. You don't, she says. You prove the process they broke and the pressure they applied. Courts dislike bullies, and boards hate liability. We position the truth where both can see it. A breeze noses the lake and comes through the glass as a shiver you feel rather than see. I think of Nathan's hands, the care, the restraint, the way tenderness became a technique. I think of the black notebook, the sentence that changed the air in the secret room like altitude. If she knows why I hold back, she'll leave. Compassion and control braided so tight the rope burns. Rebecca checks her watch. You'll get another calendar ping soon, she says. They'll confirm a time designed to put you off balance. We won't dance when they play. You'll attend, if required, only to observe. No commitments. If they push, you say you're reviewing with counsel. Counsel, I repeat. The word feels less like armor and more like oxygen. She leans in. One more thing. If Claire contacts you, keep every message. Screenshots with timestamps. If she calls, record a contemporaneous note, time, content, any threats or inducements. We're building a story that doesn't need your blood to be convincing. The light outside brightens without warming. Boats drift like commas waiting for a sentence to deserve them. We pay, and Rebecca squeezes my forearm in a gesture that is both friendship and a future affidavit. You're not alone in this, she says. Text me when anything moves. After she leaves, I remain with the empty cups and the echo of her plan. The cafe's glass shows me double. Me now and the me I hope to be. Steady, factual, unafraid of corridors with hidden doors. My phone buzzes in my palm, a small electric heart, and a new message threads itself into my inbox from an address I don't recognize. No subject, no signature. Just a single line that places itself like a key on the table between what I know and what I am about to learn. Ask Claire about the podcast. There are truths that exist only when spoken aloud. The studio sits on the third floor of a brick building that remembers factories. The elevator is slow enough to make you consider your choices. The hallway outside smells like coffee and old varnish. On the glass door, a black and white poster with a single sentence under the show's title. What you hide owns you. I read it twice, because ownership is what this whole thing has started to feel like. A quiet deed someone else recorded against my life. Inside, foam panels swallow the city. Cables loop like tame snakes. Jessica Turner stands to greet me, all clear eyes and radio warmth. A woman who knows how to make silence lean forward. Thank you for coming, she says, ushering me into a booth with 2 mics and a lamp that throws a circle of respectable gold. We can keep this fully anonymous. Voice filter, no names, no dates. You own every second you give me. I sit, palms on my knees to stop them from performing. I don't know what I'm ready to say. Then we won't say anything you aren't, she replies. We just make a room where your truth can hear itself out loud. Most people don't realize that's the first time it sounds real. She pours water, sets the glass within reach, and leaves it alone. The kindness makes me want to run. Instead, I look at the mic, at the tiny green light waiting to become red. What if speaking makes it worse? What if whispering made it possible? Jessica smiles, not persuasive so much as confident in physics. You're not the first to sit where you're sitting, Emily. The sound of my name in her mouth tilts the floor. You've had wives? Husbands? I've had people, she says, and some of those people walked in with contracts written to be knives. Carter Law shows up in more than one of those stories. She reads my face with the ease of someone who used to wait tables. Your eyes just changed. They handle my husband's family documents, I say, careful as I would be stepping off a curb in the dark. Jessica nods. Then you should know this. I've talked to 2 guests, both off record, who described administrative cleanups that conveniently aligned with leverage, signatures pressure-washed into existence, addenda that were never truly agreed to. Nothing provable alone, of course. That's how rot behaves in good wood. The lamp hums softly. The room is a small planet where gravity is curiosity. I picture the black notebook in the hidden room, the sentence that felt like altitude sickness. If she knows why I hold back, she'll leave. How many truths only live in writing, and how many require a throat? Jessica glances at my hands. We can do a test, she says. No names, no dates, just shape. A woman learns about a clause that defines her marriage by a criterion designed to break her. She talks about what control sounds like when it says please. She talks about the difference between a loving hand and a fearful one. If you don't like how it feels, we delete. I'm not trying to humiliate him, I say, surprised at how fast the defense arrives. I'm trying to stop a story from being told about me that's not mine. That sentence, she says, lifting her pen. That's your spine. The chair creaks when I shift. The foam panels make even that sound important. There's timing, I say. A meeting this afternoon. Review of an addendum I didn't sign. The law moves in straight lines. People don't. Which is why media exists, she says. Not as mob, as mirror. But don't worry, nothing airs without your say-so. There's also a legal phrase you might appreciate. Leverage. You set the conditions under which your voice becomes public. My phone buzzes. Rebecca's name blooms on the screen. I hold up a finger and step into the hallway. I'm at the studio, I tell her. She wants to record an anonymous teaser. Rebecca's voice is all wire and sense. Do it, but don't publish. Not yet. Your story is a fuse. We light it only when we choose the room that burns. I exhale, the relief of instruction. So I put a match in my pocket. Exactly. Make it sharp. No names, no dates, no claims you can't evidence later. But make it yours. When the time comes, the public arena will need a map. Signal me when, I say. Give me a code. Draw an X on your wrist, she says. When you send me a photo of that mark with the time, I'll know you've decided. Call it Signal X. Until then, you are a vault with 2 keys. A laugh escapes me, small and startled. I didn't know I could be both the room and the lock. You're also the architect, she says, and hangs up before reassurance can curdle. Back in the booth, Jessica adjusts the mic to my mouth's height, like a tailor finding a hem. We'll record 60 seconds, she says. A breath, not a confession. You can always bury this. Or you can put a bell around it and let it ring when you want I settle the headphones over my ears. The world condenses to a clean, dry soundscape. My breath, the faint thrum of a city blocked by foam, the warmth of Jessica's voice in the other channel. She gives me a finger countdown. 3, 2, 1. The light winks from green to red. In a certain house by a certain lake, I begin. A woman learned to mistrust the silence that called itself decorum. She married a man whose hands were kind and whose body was a locked door. She discovered that contracts can be braided into love without either party noticing. Until one day the rope starts to burn. I pause. Hear my own breath, surprised by its steadiness. She isn't here to accuse. She's here to mark the shape of a story someone else is already writing about her, and to say, there are truths that only exist when spoken aloud. Jessica holds a palm up. Perfect. We sit in the warm hush that follows a first draft of courage. That was clean, she says. We'll filter your voice. You'll sound like a stranger. I'll file this under working title Echo. It goes nowhere until you send me the signal. Signal X, I say, tracing the letter on my wrist with a thumbnail. The skin remembers. She leans back. You know, people think podcasts are about noise. I don't chase noise. Her smile lifts, a radio smile, audible even if you shut your eyes. I chase echo. The thing that keeps sounding after the sound. I'm not after noise either, I say. I'm after echo. The sentence settles in my chest like furniture that finally fits the room. We pack the moment into a folder and seal it. Jessica walks me to the door, shows me the hallway bathroom, as if hospitality were a spell against fear. I thank her and promise not to ghost. In the corridor, the poster waits again. What you hide owns you. I touch the glass with 2 fingers, as if words might have a pulse. Outside, the afternoon is a sheet of pewter. I step onto the sidewalk and pull my coat close against the wind that smells like wet stone and fairy diesel. I'm turning left toward the bus stop when a familiar gate crosses the intersection of reflection and reality. Claire. Hair glossy, coat expensive in the quiet way, phone in her hand like a passport. She isn't looking at me. She is moving with purpose toward the building next door, the one with the discreet directory and a lobby plant that has never seen rain. I follow her with my eyes to the plaque beside the glass. The serifed letters are tidy, practiced, comfortable with liability. Leaving the studio, Emily spots Claire stepping into the building next door, the Carter office. Every secret room answers in metal. Night braids itself through the house, rain needling the windows. Each gust testing the frame as if the wind suspects what I've learned. Nathan is on a business trip. His absence removes a pressure and creates another. I stand in the office with the door cracked an inch, listening to the old, careful building breathe. When the silence decides I belong, I press the shelf the way muscle remembers, hip, not hand, and feel the track glide. The bookcase moves as if it enjoys being useful to someone who knows the code. Inside, the narrow cavity wakes to the motion sensor's hum. The light is a clean strip along the ceiling, hospital honest. Steel table, the black notebook where I left it, elastic sleeping across its back. The safe waits on the floor, small and squat, its dial a matte moon. I kneel and take Nathan's leather notebook from my robe pocket, the one from the outer office, the one with grocery lists and board notes and a sketch of a floor plan I realize now is this very wall. In the back, tucked into a slit, a key grins its small, civilized smile. When the bit seats home, the lock speaks, a tight, glassy ting, a sound tiny and absolute, like the single syllable that begins a game of Go. The safe's handle gives under my palm with the grudging politeness of a waiter who knows you're about to reorder the whole meal. Inside, a velvet pouch, a plastic case the size of a thumb, and an envelope heavier than ordinary paper. I leave the envelope where it is. I open the plastic case. A USB drive rests inside like a dark seed. My chest tightens with the knowledge that once I listen, I can't unhear. I set the drive beside the notebook, look up at the strip light, and let the fear travel its circuit until it returns as caution. I bring my own laptop because I won't risk his. The screen's glow paints my hands ghost blue. I plug the drive in and the computer inhales. Recognition, then a directory. One folder, named in the kind of plain English men use when they believe their computers are private. Carter_Claire_rec. I click. Several files live there, time-stamped across the last month. I choose the earliest. The waveform opens, patient as a heartbeat on a screen. Voices. Carter first, oiled, affable, the tone of a man walking you to a cliff with his arm around your shoulder. Look, Claire, the clause is a standard pressure valve. Consummation is a concept, not a metric. Either it gives you leverage or it spooks him into compliance. Either way. Claire's voice is clipped champagne, bubbles with a knife edge. We are not discussing leverage. We are discussing correction. If the marriage is technically incomplete, assets revert. That's what the draft says. I assume you can get signatures tidy. Tidy happens, he says, amused. Especially when the alternative is messy. I pause the file. The room makes the kind of quiet that is not natural. The kind that descends when a rule has been broken and the air is deciding what to do with you. I take notes with the kind of calm I've had to learn. Date stamps, file name, time into the recording. I back up the directory to an encrypted folder. I copy the copy to a secure cloud I opened this afternoon. Sentry-coded, 2-factor, the works. Then I hit play again and brace for the part where they stop pretending the law is anything but theater with consequences. Claire. If the marriage counts as unconsummated, assets revert to the Hale estate. There it is. A sentence that wants to be a blade. Carter. Then we encourage a narrative. Paper ruffles. Documentation. Medical would be best. Failing that, an acknowledgement. even implied. Then the addendum is gravity, an acknowledgement, implied. The words pace themselves over the inside of my ribs like decals. I think of the nights Nathan's hands did the work his body refused, tenderness deployed as technique. I think of my own attempts to learn a language he would not teach with his mouth. The clause tries to make meaning from a boundary. That's the cruelty. To turn care into admission, caution into confession. I scrub forward. The second recording is thinner, harsher room tone, the sound of heels, a door, Claire again. Martha will support optics. She wants the house back in the family if Emily. The pause is barbed. If Emily insists on playing difficult. Carter. We avoid discussing the bride publicly. We discuss structures. Families love structures. Bodies turned into structures. Love turned into compliance. I feel my jaw tighten in a way the therapist would call bracing. If truth is a blade, I whisper to the humming strip of light, I choose to hold it by the hilt. I copy the entire directory to an external drive I bought on the way home, still in shrink wrap, labeled only with a dot of green sticker. I open a secure share link and send it to Rebecca with a single line. Directory attached. Multiple dates. Clear clause discussion. I include a screenshot of the file list and the timestamps, and then I put my phone on airplane mode because courage sometimes needs a corridor with no doors. The rain becomes louder, sharp bursts, then sheets, then pauses like the storm has gone to consult its attorney. I unzip the velvet pouch. Inside, a second key, smaller than the safe's, teeth cut in a different song. I search the cavity for a lock to match and find a slim slot beneath the table, flush with the wall. The kind of design you notice only if you decide to notice everything. I slide the key in. The resistance is intelligent, the way a lock argues before it agrees. Then the tiny, decisive ting, the go syllable again. A panel the width of a paperback snaps open, revealing a single laminated card. It is an index of symbols, 3 colored dots, green, amber, red, and below them, neat typed definitions. Consent language, stop words, an explanation of how to use voice affirmations as contracts between adults who require certainty to be kind. The tenderness of it guts me more than the recordings did. The man who hid these also built a vocabulary for care and didn't show me where he kept the dictionary. The laptop pings with a new window. Backup complete. I eject the drive and return it to its plastic case, the case to the safe to its quiet. I smooth the cloth over the steel until my fingerprints are smudged back into air. My phone vibrates despite airplane mode. No, that's the landline in the office beyond the wall, a sound so antique it startles. I stay still until it stops. The house is an ear. I step out of the cavity and close the shelf, guiding the wood along the track so the crescent of dust won't betray me. My heartbeat is a fast metronome, my breath slower than it should be, as if the storm has taught my lungs a new rhythm. I unlock my phone and compose a message to Rebecca. Secondary lock found. Consent card inside. We are not dealing only with malice. We are dealing with fear and its paperwork. Send. I power down and stand in the dim, the office returning to its staging. The rain pulls back to a whisper, then a jealous hush. I am about to turn off the lamp when the screen lights in my hand. Unknown number, no contact photo, just a clean, unfrightened font. Don't be foolish enough to touch what doesn't belong to you. I invited them to apologize. In truth, I came to listen to them lie. By evening, the house is staged like a remorse I don't feel. Candles pool warm light along the dining table. The silver throws back small moons. In the center, a bouquet of white lilies stands too tall, funereal in its elegance, a wreath waiting for a story that's about to die. I've set out low glasses, sparkling water, linen pressed flat enough to erase fingerprints. On the living room door, a discreet placard I ordered this afternoon. For note-taking and accuracy, this room may be audio recorded. It looks like courtesy. It is consent. They arrive in a choreography I could have predicted. Martha first, pearls steady as a sermon. Claire a beat later in quiet black, expensive in that whispering way. Nathan with his tie loosened, the weariness of diplomacy on his mouth, and, introduced as if he simply happened to be in the car, Mr. Carter, suave, well-ironed, his smile the polite version of teeth. Thank you for coming, I say, my voice dressed in contrition. I owe you all an apology for the apparent marital issues. I thought a conversation could be healing. I let the word breathe sugar, a kind of reconciliation. Martha's relief is visible, a tent collapsing in slow motion. That's all we've ever wanted, she says, finding a chair as if she has been rehearsing for this one all along. Claire unbuttons her coat with a flick, assessing the room with battlefield calm. We appreciate your openness, she says, smoothing napkin to lap. In the spirit of compassion, I spoke to our counsel about options that are gentle. Nathan's under pressure, so are you. We can reduce that together. Carter folds his hands. Amicable solutions, he offers, like a waiter describing a special. No press, no noise, just an alignment of documents with realities. Nathan chooses the armchair opposite me, not beside me. It's a distance that reads like punctuation. He's watching me carefully, as if I'm a new instrument he's not sure he can play. Claire glances at him, then back to me. The cleanest path, she says, would be a short-form separation that recognizes certain incompletions. No fault, no character judgments, merely the truth that sometimes a ceremony happens and a marriage doesn't. If we acknowledge that, the law has tidy ways of returning things to their proper homes. Her eyes flicker to the lilies. They do look like they belong at the end of something. I sip water I don't want, set the glass exactly back on its ring on the coaster. Proper homes, I repeat. You mean assets. Structures, Carter corrects pleasantly. Families like structures. Of course, Claire says, the consonants crisp. And we're here to be kind. If you prefer, we sign a mutual confidentiality, frame everything as timing and stress, and Nathan retains the house and associated obligations. You leave intact. Everyone gets to keep their dignity. Martha pats my hand, the gesture warm enough to leave a mark. We all want the best for you, dear. Whatever makes you happy. I let the apology deepen on my face, the way actors let emotion pass behind their eyes. I was angry, I say, and I'm sorry for how that looked. Tonight I only want to make things simple. I reach for the velvet box, the one small enough to be mistaken for jewelry, and set it in the middle of the table. atop the folded linen like a blessing. Nathan's gaze flicks to it, then to me. Carter's half-smile doesn't move. Claire leans forward, curious despite herself. What's that? A courtesy, I say. Before we decide anything, before we sign anything, I want to hear your thoughts, after we all listen to something together. Carter chuckles in a tone designed to preempt discomfort. Emily, recordings are notoriously out of context. Context is my favorite dessert, I say. I serve it after the main course. I stand and cross to the media cabinet. The remote sits where I left it, exact to the millimeter, because control makes even my spine neater. The TV wakes in a soft bloom. On the credenza beneath, a small digital recorder hums obediently, legal by signage, and more honest than any of us. Through the ajar pantry door, Rebecca waits in the side room I've rebranded as Notes and Coats, her equipment on the lowest gain, the feed time-stamped and clean. Her text earlier still glows in my head. Announce the recording once. Don't argue law. Let the facts speak. Your job is the room, not the verdict. I open the velvet lid. The USB slides neatly into my palm, a dark seed with a bright future. Just a minute of listening, I say, glancing at Martha, gentling my tone, so our conversation can be grounded in the same sound. Claire's jaw tightens almost invisibly. This feels adversarial. So did the calendar invite, I answer, pleasant as napery. But perhaps we are all misreading. Nathan shifts, voice finally entering the room. I know, I say, and I do. I know he is afraid of fire he can't manage. I know his hands have been kind, and his rules have been cruel. I fit the USB into the TV's port, and the screen accepts its blessing. Carter clears his throat, professional sunshine dimming a shade. Whatever this is, we should listen, I finish, pressing play. Claire inhales, readying her counterpoint, but sound overtakes us. Familiar voices in a strange room, time-stamped and uninterested in our feelings. Carter first, smooth as a foyer. Then Claire, metal under velvet. The audio quality is good enough to be believed and bad enough to be real. I watch their faces reflect themselves back at themselves. It is an intimacy I hadn't planned on enjoying. Procedural, Carter's recorded self is saying. A standard pressure valve. Either it gives leverage or it... Claire's captured voice interrupts, precise as a scalpel. We are not discussing leverage. We are discussing correction. Beside me, Martha's fingers find her pearls, then drop them as if they have become warm. Nathan has not moved his eyes from the screen. Claire is still. The stillness of a cat watching a window it will not admit is a mirror. Carter is smiling less now. I lower the volume to make room for my own voice. I don't need perfection, I say softly, letting the confession travel only the distance it must. I need the truth. Carter seizes the lull. With respect, this is inappropriate. We are in a private home. And this private home is a recorded room, I say, nodding toward the placard on the door, for note-taking and accuracy. We want accurate notes, don't we, Mr. Carter? He doesn't answer. The lilies breathe their heavy sweetness, the silver watches. I press play again. In this clip, Claire's voice is lower, closer to what I've always suspected lived beneath the varnish. If the marriage is technically incomplete, she says, assets revert. Martha murmurs a sound that might be prayer. Nathan's hand has closed on the armrest, whitening the knuckles. I could stop now and have enough. But I have learned that justice, when she finally arrives, deserves a decent chair and a full plate. I would like your opinions, I say, and smile, because the line deserves a smile. After we hear this part. I step aside so the television occupies the center, the bouquet ringed in white like a haloed witness. Rebecca's message vibrates in my pocket without sound. Level's good. You're holding the room. I angle the remote, bring the volume up to where honesty sounds like glass. The TV wakes to speech again, not mine, not Nathan's, not even Carter's tidy warmth. It is Claire, threaded with certainty, walking her voice out onto the edge she chose. If we can prove they haven't, every room has its acoustics. That night, the truth resonated perfectly. The living room still smelled of lilies and warmed silver. On the door, the quiet sticker, room may be audio monitored for note-taking, caught a lick of candlelight like a small badge of law. The TV screen held its patient pause, the progress bar a thin vein of possibility. No one spoke. In the pantry, Rebecca's shadow didn't move. Her equipment whispered only in timestamps. I pressed play. Carter's voice came first, smooth as a foyer. A standard pressure valve. Consummation is a concept, not a metric. Either it provides leverage or... Claire's recorded tone cut through, precise as a scalpel. We're not discussing leverage, we're discussing correction. The words climbed the walls and returned to us, rounded by the room. Martha's hand went to her pearls, then slid away as if they'd warmed under a fever. Nathan did not blink. Claire stared at the television as if it had made a social error. Inappropriate, Carter said to the air, mustering a smile. This is wildly out of context. When people say out of context, I answered, lowering the volume without muting the truth. It's usually because the context won't stand with them. I gestured toward the door placard, and the context here is announced and consensual. Martha cleared her throat. Maybe we should focus on healing. Her voice tried to braid itself into a blanket. I'm for healing, I said. I'm also for facts. I lifted the remote a notch. Claire, help me understand your intent, in your own words. She tilted her chin, a queen tolerating the peasantry. My intent is to spare this family a circus, to protect Nathan, to protect you, if you'd allow it. By proposing a tidy narrative, I said, gentling my tone, in which a ceremony happened but a marriage did not. If the truth fits, she said, the smile on her mouth at odds with the metal in her eyes. Which truth? I asked. The one constructed by documents, or the one lived in a house? Carter interposed with the grace of a traffic cone. We are veering into accusation. Miss Hale, Emily, feelings are valid, but process exists for a reason. Then let's discuss process, I said. Who requested the addendum? Who created the draft? Who benefits from a definition that reduces a marriage to a checklist item? Out of context, he repeated, softening the phrase to make it sound like mercy. I let the recording roll. Carter again, on the TV, suggesting narratives, paper rustling, a door. Then Claire's voice, lower this time, closer to the ground. If the marriage is technically incomplete, assets revert. Martha's breath snagged. Nathan's fingers tightened white on the armrest. I faced Claire, not the screen. Technically incomplete, I repeated. Who measures the technicality? The law, Carter said, and discretion. Discretion is what people call silence after they win, I said. Claire, who told you about the clause in the first place? Everyone knows prenuptials evolve, she said lightly. Families adjust. It's responsible. Responsible like asking counsel to tidy signatures? I asked. Responsible like reorganizing the family cloud the same week a draft appears? The TV carried on, indifferent to our choreography. Carter's recorded laugh slid along the baseboards. Claire on the recording again, crisp. We are not discussing leverage. We are discussing correction. What needs correcting? I asked the living Claire. Me? My body? My marriage? Her smile thinned. Emily, don't make this a crusade. It's logistics. Logistics with a very specific hinge, I said. A private hinge turned into a public lever. She shrugged, and the gesture landed with the weight of a door closing. You're over-dramatizing. I used to be an audience member in my own life, I said. Tonight, I'm directing. I turned slightly so Martha could see my mouth soften. No one is being attacked. We're just letting the facts audition. Carter leaned forward. If your goal is reconciliation, this is the wrong way. My goal is honesty, I said. Reconciliation can't afford lies. The clip shifted to a harsher room tone. Then Claire, on the TV again, almost bored. Martha will support optics, if Emily insists on playing difficult. Optics? Martha whispered, turning to her. Claire. Mom, Claire said, quiet steel. Please. I muted the set and let the room hear itself. Claire, I said, soft as a hand on a fevered brow. Walk me through the plan you and Mr. Carter considered. Step by step. No adjectives. She glanced at Carter. He recovered his smile. There is no plan. There are options. One would have been a mutual acknowledgement that certain personal aspects remained unresolved, after which the parties might explore an amicable separation. End of story. No press, no scandal, no... Assets revert, I said. Structures adjust, he said. And if the structures required proof? I asked, holding Claire's eyes. What would you need to make your story hold? Her jaw worked once, a tell I'd been waiting to see. Nothing dramatic, she said. An acknowledgement. Or, ideally, supporting documentation. She reached for her water, didn't drink it. Then, almost too quickly, if the medical report isn't there, then we win. The room's acoustics did the rest, folding the sentence back on itself until even the lilies seemed to listen. Martha's hand found the table and steadied there. Carter blinked once, a slow, expensive blink, before assembling his next sentence. Nathan turned to me. Which medical report? His face had gone pale. I looked for my name in a report. It wasn't there. Midnight lays a graphite sheen over the office. The desk lamp forms a tight island where evidence can't pretend to be atmosphere. Rebecca's face appears on my screen. Blue light, sharp eyes, the calm of someone who believes in knives made of metadata. Send me the file, she says. I drag the PDF into our encrypted chat. She opens it and leans closer, as if smell might help. All right. First tells. The patient name field is rasterized. Someone flattened the text to an image. See this fuzz around the letters? That's not native. Second, the author string is blank, but the producer is a print-to-PDF driver Carter's firm loves. Third, timestamps. Created 10:13 a.m., modified 10:19 a.m., then again at 10:27. A genuine hospital export doesn't hop like that in 10-minute intervals. Nathan stands behind me, arms folded as if he's holding himself together. I angle the screen so he can see the gray smudge where a name should be. They scrubbed it, I say. Rebecca zooms deeper. Notice the white box halo around patient? Someone redacted the name with a rectangle, then retyped a new line over it, but never embedded a font. That's why it rasterized. Amateur hour dressed as discretion. She flips to the Properties pane. Also, the file path in the XMP packet references a desktop temp folder, not a medical system. Whoever generated this wasn't inside a hospital's chain of custody. Nathan swallows. Claire asked me once, he says quietly, weeks ago. She said it would be easier if I signed a general release so she could streamline any requests for records. I thought it was about insurance. I signed. The chair's leather creaks under my hands. You gave her authorization to request my medical info. I didn't think. He stops. Honesty arrives late but loud. No, I didn't think. Rebecca's voice cuts in, surgical. We verify the chain. Emily, call the hospital portal and request an audit record tied to your name for the last 60 days. Ask them to confirm whether any records were generated for consummation or marital capacity. You'll either get a match or a void. Either way, we win. I dial, repeat the script, spell my name twice. On hold, the music is a cheerful lie. Nathan paces a groove into the rug, guilt making him careful with his feet for once. The line clicks. A human returns. Miss Hale, the rep says, clear and quick. We can confirm no records exist under your name for the stated purpose. No orders placed, no consultations, no releases fulfilled. I thank her, ask for an email copy, write the confirmation number on a sticky note like it's a spell. When I hang up, the room exhales. Rebecca lets herself smile. That's your spine. The report is a fabrication, or at best a Franken document. Save the hospital email to 3 places. Done, I say, already dragging, copying, naming the file with a timestamp. The PDF on my desktop looks smaller now. A costume that forgot the body it was built for. Nathan's voice is almost a whisper. I should have protected you from them. Instead, I made it easier. You can still start protecting me, I say. Start by telling me everything Claire's asked you to sign, and why you said yes. He nods once, a vow without poetry. Rebecca straightens. Next move, we don't announce this, we hold it. If Carter waives the report, we drop the hospital's denial like a curtain, and Emily, document that authorization Claire pushed at Nathan. If we can show intent, the board will see liability before they see family. My phone buzzes. A new message from an unknown number. The tone of someone who thinks fear travels faster than fact. If you expose this, I'll put your private life on the podcast first. He didn't ask for forgiveness. He asked to tell the truth. For the first time. Rain braids itself against Dr. Cole's window, steady enough to measure a pulse. Her office is all soft wood and deliberate chairs, the kind of room where words stop pretending they're fine. Nathan sits angled toward the glass as if looking for a verdict there. I sit angled toward him, as if looking for a person. Dr. Cole doesn't rush the silence. "Nathan," she says at last, voice even as a ruler. "When you avoid full intimacy, what are you protecting?" He rubs his thumb along his palm, a nervous eraser. "Her," he says, and the word is a wince. "And me." Years ago, I crossed a boundary, nothing criminal but enough to watch someone panic. I promised I'd never be the reason anyone felt unsafe again. So I built fences, routines, rules. He swallows. Hands were safe. Predictable. I thought restraint was love. It can be, Dr. Cole says, until it becomes control of yourself, of her experience. She lets the sentence breathe. Who taught you that rules should replace trust? He closes his eyes. My family. Claire. After the wedding, she brought papers to the house, said Mom would sleep better if I formalized things. Said it was just housekeeping. I signed the addendum. He opens his eyes and looks at me as if a storm has just ended and the wreckage is visible. I signed it right there in the kitchen. I'm sorry. The apology is bare. It doesn't beg. I feel anger move through me like weather. Arrive, strike, pass. And something sturdier remains. Claire manipulated you, I say, but you let her. You chose rules over trust. You chose your mother's quiet over my truth. He takes it. Yes. Dr. Cole leans forward. If you want to choose differently now, name the choice. Nathan straightens, the mirror on the far wall catching only one of him this time, not two. I'll undo it, he says. I'll rescind the addendum, publicly. My breath changes shape. Not whispers, I say. Not a private fix. You stand with the truth where it can be seen, before the board, on the record. Yes. His jaw sets, not as defense but as decision. I'll sign the rescission and present it at the board meeting. I'll say I was wrong. Dr. Cole nods once, the smallest benediction. Good. Responsibility is not the opposite of love. It's the instrument it plays. Her gaze touches both of us. Love doesn't need hands to control. It needs a heart to take responsibility. Nathan looks at me the way a man looks at a door he finally intends to open. I'm with you, he says, not as a plea, as a pledge. I don't promise a future. I promise the next step. Then we start now. We send Rebecca the plan. We prepare the documents. We go together. The room exhales. Outside, the rain loosens into a softer grammar. Dr. Cole reaches for her phone to schedule our follow-up, but the screen is already flashing. She listens, frowns, then covers the mouthpiece. It's my clerk at the courthouse, she says. The time they've slotted for your filing conflicts exactly with the Hale and Partners shareholders meeting. A small mark on my wrist would make the whole city listen. The lobby hums with the tuned quiet of money, shoes softened by carpet, voices wrapped in courtesy. Outside, the morning clouds hang low, as if the sky itself were bending to hear. Hale and Partners has polished every surface to photograph well. I stand beneath a brass directory and draw a neat X on my wrist with a black pen, 2 strokes crossing, like a promise and a fuse. Jessica waits near the elevator bank with a messenger bag that could pass for a purse. Her eyes flick to the mark. "We hold until you touch it," she murmurs, shoulder to shoulder like strangers on a train. "Teaser only, your voice filtered, no names. When you give the signal, the stream picks up your public mic, their public statements, and the documents Rebecca cleared. No commentary, just mirrors." "Wait for X," I say. My voice is steady, my ribs are not. On the mezzanine, Claire and Carter survey the conference room through glass. A tech adjusts table microphones while Carter rehearses a smile to fit any sentence. Claire's blazer is the color of intent. She points, the tech nods. A cord snakes under a dais, the neat choreography of narrative management. At the far end, Martha greets a pair of business reporters with the soft theater of philanthropy. Cameras blink, pearls catch the light like agreements. Rebecca meets me at the hallway's bend with a folder and the watchfulness of someone counting exits. "Injunction draft is filed," she says, low. "If they waive the fake report or reference it, I can walk it to the judge's clerk 2 blocks away. We're not stopping speech. We're stopping forged evidence. Different animal. You're covered." Nathan steps out of a side door, tie straight, eyes not quite. He looks at my wrist, then my face, and the shame there is complicated by resolve. "I'll say it," he breathes, "on the record." "Good," I answer. "Say it to the room. The city will hear it anyway." Jessica checks her phone, then my posture. "We'll sit back by the press riser," she says. "If the signal never comes, the teaser sleeps. If it does, the system picks up the board feed and the public mics. No back doors, all lawful." "Sometimes," I say, watching Claire direct a floral arrangement so the lilies face the central camera. "To be heard, you have to choose the right microphone." Doors open. Shareholders filter in with the air of people arriving for weather they commissioned. Security smiles the way you do when you've practiced. On the room's far wall, a digital clock rolls toward the hour with the confidence of an orchestra tuning. Behind glass, the city waits, ferries drawing white lines across the lake like signatures. Jessica touches my elbow. "If you don't press X, the world doesn't move," she says. "Power is refusing as much as it is choosing." Rebecca slips a badge into my palm. "Observer," the laminate reads. Beneath it, a timestamp. "Remember," she adds, "if Carter names documents, you ask, source and chain. Then stop. The injunction speaks for you." We take our seats. Claire confers with Carter, both of them apparently pleased that every mic has been tamed. Martha beams at a familiar photographer. Flash pops like nervous applause. Nathan stands behind his chair at the front, fingers resting on the back as if he could feel the weight he's about to lift. The hour tips. A soft chime threads the room, and conversations fold themselves into silence. The board members file in. The chair clears his throat into a mic that hums with its own confidence. "We're now in session," he says, and the air tightens by 1 notch. I look across the distance at Jessica. She meets my eyes without agenda. My pulse sets its own metronome. The X on my wrist seems to warm, ink waking under skin. I press my index finger to the mark, a touch that is both consent and ignition. My phone vibrates once in my pocket. Jessica's message arrives, spare and precise, a switch with a sentence attached. "Live stream armed." And the red light on her camera blinks alive. They thought they were the board. It turned out they were witnesses. 30 floors up, The city looks arranged for judgment. Fairies draw signatures on the water. Clouds gather like clerks. The boardroom's glass walls reflect faces made for annual reports, poised, polished, sure of their jurisdiction. A carved wooden gavel decorates the credenza, a joke from some past retreat, but today it has the gravity of an omen. Claire opens with poise sharpened to a point. For the company's good, she says into the table mic, we should review the CEO's marriage in light of recent complexities. She doesn't look at me when she says marriage, or at Nathan when she says CEO. Carter leans forward, a hand tenting his notes, ready to turn suggestion into procedure. I stand without raising my voice. If we're speaking of context, I say, let's give it sound. The screen behind the dais wakes on cue. The clip rolls. Carter's own tone, recorded, pours out smooth and certain. A standard pressure valve. Consummation is a concept, not a metric. And then Claire's voice cuts in. We're not discussing leverage. We're discussing correction. The room's acoustics polish their words until they ring. Inadmissible theatrics, Carter says, smile stretched thin. Out of context. The context, I answer, is your intent. I tap the laptop and bring up a second window, a clean slide of the PDF's properties pane. This is the medical report you floated. Metadata shows a desktop temp path, a scrubbed patient field, 3 modifications in 14 minutes using your firm's print driver. Hospitals do not export like this. Forgers do. Martha's pearls stop moving. The chair of the board, who has given nothing away all morning, leans in an inch. Claire's knuckles pale where she grips her pen. Nathan rises. No theatrics, only air and decision. There's more, he says, voice carrying without force. He produces a single page and places it flat in front of the mic. This is my rescission of the post-wedding addendum. I signed it this morning. It was wrong. I was wrong. He looks at me, then at the board. I'm standing with the truth. Jessica's camera light glows red at the back wall, catching the words the way a bell catches sound. Phones in the press gallery outside lift like sunflowers. Rebecca steps forward from the side aisle, a folder cradled in her arm as if it were an instrument. And for the record, she says, the hospital has confirmed in writing, no records exist under the name Emily Hale for the stated purpose. No orders placed, no consultations, no releases. Any document to the contrary is fabricated. Carter's polish falters. Let's be reasonable, he says too quickly. We're conflating, we're disambiguating, Rebecca replies. And if any falsified document is waived today, an injunction is ready for filing. A murmur ripples along the table, fear disguised as process. The chair clears his throat. Ms. Morgan, Mr. Carter, do you dispute counsel's representation regarding the report's chain of custody? Claire lifts her chin, but before she can conjure a sentence, the main screen twitches. An internal notification bar climbs into view, bright as a flare. Someone in IT has mirrored a system alert to the display, and for one unguarded breath, the company shows us its pulse. Carter fumbles for the keyboard, composure slipping like a cufflink. On the projected inbox, a new email blooms, boldface and unignorable, its subject line crisp as a summons. Wire transfers. Claire M. Money has a palate. It hates the dark. The boardroom's glass turned afternoon into a mirror. Someone in audit, young, precise, terrified of being imprecise, took the keyboard from Carter and shared a ledger. Cells gleamed like tiles under a forensic lamp. Halfway down, a blank square sat inside a row that should have closed months ago. The same gap I'd seen in last quarter's summary. A missing tooth. A mouth that couldn't quite smile for the camera. "Here," the auditor said, voice steady because the data was doing the shaking. "Wire activity routed through Treasury subaccounts, then out to a vendor recently added without full onboarding. Northwest Heritage, LLC. He clicked. A stack expanded, amounts unspooled in neat, hungry columns. 5 transfers in 8 weeks. Descriptions: Heritage Consulting, Legacy Advisory, Archival Services. No deliverables attached. Carter moved first, reaching for the laptop like a man snatching a tablecloth to save the dishes. "We're not airing internal controls in a shareholder session," he said, smile too white for the weather. "Let's cut the feed." The screen went dark, but audio remained. Jessica's mic catching the room even as the picture died. A murmur rose from beyond the glass, reporters sensing blood without needing to see it. The auditor cleared his throat into the surviving sound. "We also traced the vendor registration," he said. "Beneficial owner records were incomplete until last week, when a beneficial ownership report was filed to comply with new guidance. It lists a single controlling interest." "Stop," Carter said, palm up, courtroom calm fraying. "This is privileged." "Name," I said, not raising my voice. "Who owns Northwest Heritage, LLC?" The image returned, a cursor stuttering over a PDF before committing. The field expanded. Letters arranged themselves with bureaucratic certainty. Claire Morgan. Martha sat as if her legs had been negotiated out from under her. The gavel on the credenza looked less like a joke and more like a memory of authority. Claire's pen clattered, her chair scraped, and then the veneer cracked. "It was all for the family," she shouted, color rising as if confession were heat. "You think donors appear by magic? You think legacy preserves itself? I safeguarded what any of you couldn't." "If you love a family," I said, the sentence landing where the lilies had been in another room, "why steal it?" The chair of the board spoke into his mic with the kind of quiet that makes louder men obey. "Ms. Morgan, Mr. Carter, you will remain available for an internal inquiry, effective immediately." He nodded to security, whose radios had already begun their low, efficient chatter. 2 officers stepped inside the glass, not dramatic, just certain. Carter tried a final smile meant for juries that never convened. "We can explain." "You will," Rebecca said from the aisle, holding up a printed hospital email like a warrant from the sensible world. "And you'll do it without tampering with evidence, because this room is mirrored 6 ways. Every feed is archived." Claire's eyes cut to Nathan and then to me. A flicker of calculation, of plea, of something that used to pass for loyalty. Outside the glass, phones lifted in a field of lenses. Inside, the auditor scrolled on, almost tender with the truth. The ledger filled with what money always says when it's finally asked the right question. "We don't need a gavel. We have the sun." The balcony doors slid open, and the automatic blinds climbed to the ceiling, like a curtain giving way to judgment. Rare Seattle sunlight flooded the 30-floor boardroom, gilding glass, steel, and every face that had hidden too long in shadow. Outside, cameras flashed. Reporters pressed forward, as if the light itself were a statement. Nathan stepped to the podium, wind tugging gently at his jacket. "I let fear shape our marriage," he began, steady but bare. I called control love, silence respect, and comfort safety. I hurt Emily. I hurt this company. That ends today. His words hung in the bright air, clean, unscripted. The board chair placed 2 documents on the table: the joint statement of nullification and the policy of consent and transparency. Nathan signed first, hand firm. I followed, my pen gliding beside his. Each stroke felt less like a signature and more like sunlight cutting through fog. Autonomy, I said, turning to the cameras, is not rebellion. It's the foundation of every honest relationship, personal or corporate. Consent is not a clause. It's character. And truth doesn't need to shout. It only needs a place to stand. Applause rose, uneven at first, then swelling as the live stream counter exploded. Hundreds, thousands, then millions. Jessica's camera zoomed in on the signatures, the tag flashing "Hidden Truths, Special Report." The moment bled from boardroom to world. Reporters pushed questions forward. The board smiled with relief. Even the city below seemed to listen. The carved gavel on the shelf, once a symbol of judgment, now looked like an antique from a darker age. We had the verdict already. Light. Nathan turned toward me, eyes calm for the first time in years. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. I took his hand, and for once it wasn't about survival. It was about witness. Rebecca's phone buzzed. She read the message, color draining slightly. Then she lifted her eyes to mine. "King County Police," she said quietly. "They want the original USB drive. And the black notebook. When the storm passes, you can hear your own voice." Night lays a calm hand over the lake. The house holds still in the kind of quiet that doesn't hide anything. Above the mantel, our wedding photo no longer leans. The frame is tightened, level. The screw replaced with one that can bear weight. It looks less like proof and more like truth. 2 people, not a performance. Martha arrives alone, coat unbuttoned, pearls forgotten. She stands in the doorway with a paper envelope and the humility of someone who has run out of scripts. "I'm sorry," she says, voice smaller than I've ever heard it. "For what I blessed because it was easier." She presses the envelope into my hands. Inside is a handwritten statement, dates, meetings, who said what, ending with a single line. "I am willing to testify against Claire Morgan and Daniel Carter." The signature trembles, but it's ink. We sit at the kitchen table without choreography. She looks older, and for the first time, lighter. "I thought keeping the family meant keeping it quiet," she says. "It meant keeping it honest." I nod. We don't hug. We don't need to. She leaves with a promise to show up where oaths are taken. Rebecca calls as the door clicks shut. Her voice is brisk, almost cheerful. "Search warrant signed," she says. "Evidence chain starts now. I'll accompany the officers. You'll get receipts for the originals, the USB and the black notebook, plus a copy of the intake log. Sleep, if you can." I thank her and place the envelope beside my phone, the house suddenly feeling like a witness that won't look away. Nathan and I walk down the hall to the hidden room and switch on the clean strip of light. We unscrew the safe from the floor, drag it out, and leave a bright square where metal used to sit, like a shadow. We open the shelves, remove the blank corners that pretended to be purpose, and roll in a small round table we found in the garage, a surface with no angles to corner anyone. I bring in a lamp with a soft shade and a plant that does not apologize for growing. The air changes. Nathan takes the small silver key from his pocket and sets it in the center of the table. "You decide," he says. "We can keep it in a drawer or hang it by the door." I trace the teeth with a fingertip. "We'll hang it," I answer. Not as a threat. As language. His shoulders lower. The room exhales with him. My phone lights on the stair. A message from Jessica blooms. Spare as a doorway and just as open. "Wanna go on the key to the truth under your real name?"